What's happening? It's Todd McShay, host of The McShay Show at The Ringer and Spotify. Listen, I love all aspects of football, from the college to the professional game, but the draft is my grind. Listen and watch The McShay Show for all of my draft analysis. And if you want more, subscribe to my newsletter, The McShay Report, where you can find my mock drafts and big boards and all of the buzz and intel I'm hearing from NFL decision makers. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe to The McShay Show on The Ringer, Spotify, and wherever you watch or listen to podcasts. And subscribe to The McShay Report today for a special introductory offer. Google The McShay Report or find it on theringer.com.
Welcome to the Ringer NFL Draft Show. My name is Danny Heifetz, and I am joined by Danny Kelly and Craig Horlbeck. And today we are going over the most divisive players in this year's NFL Draft. DK is going to give us the guys that people have the widest range of opinions on in the draft, and basically why people disagree on them. What people seeing different, watching the same thing, pulling different outcomes. Also, Craig met Seth Rogen at a movie premiere and secretly contributed to a Seth Rogen TV show all summer without us knowing. And now he's going to tell us what the hell was going on with that. And we'll talk about the
summer.
Also, I don't know. Was it a day? I don't know anything
about
One day.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we got to talk
that
about
counts,
it.
Man.
Because I have no idea.
Sure.
More
Also,
than I have. More than I've done.
That's one more day. Yeah. Also,
I don't know, DK. You grew up like 45 minutes from him. You might have indirectly influenced Seth
true.
Rogen's entire career, for all I know.
We were talking about that. Seth Rogen is like almost exactly my same age. He's in my generation, and I grew up in Bellingham. He grew up.
You could have been his Evan Goldberg. You were very close.
I was close to being a Steven Glansberg at the very least.
We're also going to go over the Green Bay Packers media guide from 1936. But first, we have news, including the Giants have signed Russell Wilson.
Yeah, good thing we spent so much time talking about Jameis.
Which then, does that make us, we got a couple tweets about this, and Skeets, does that make us fantasy football Eskimo brothers that we've all shared Russell Wilson, and now Danny Heifetz gets sloppy thirds?
We're just NFL Eskimo brothers. This is unbelievable. Russell Wilson's not quarterbacked all three of our teams.
This is weird.
And it's been weirder and less exciting every single time he's gone somewhere else.
That's usually how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's fine.
Where are you at? Where's your head at? Wait. What was your initial reaction the moment you saw it, and how do you feel now? And how has that changed?
My initial reaction, honest to God, was like that was
just a heavy sigh.
For better
That's
or
correct.
for worse, that was it.
Yeah.
My second thought was, I swear to God, my second thought was, what are Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston going to talk about all season? Like, I started imagining them talking and communicating every day. And I just think that's really funny. And frankly, it's a tragedy that the Giants are going to do Hard Knocks last season so we could see Saquon instead of this season. So we could just see Jameis and Russ talking every day. I feel like it's too bad they
I feel like it
Hard
wouldn't
Knocks.
be that exciting, though.
Yeah, it's just like a bunch of the two spectrums of unearned confidence. Just like the entire gamut.
And then Tommy DeVito.
And then Tommy
The
DeVito's
weirdest
just sitting there in the
quarterback
corner.
He's like the weird little brother.
Dude, I was thinking, Inglourious Bastards? Like, Russell Wilson's going to walk in and see DeVito and be like, Buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
Yeah.
But Buongiorno. I don't know. I mean, DK, I know you gave the Craig what to expect when you're expecting with Russ in Pittsburgh. And like, now I kind of want it for both of you. But I mean, I feel like I watched this guy suck against the Ravens in the entire December for the Pittsburgh. And I'm just like, I will talk myself into this, but I have very mixed emotions.
I don't know. I think he raises the floor, because like the floor for you or what you're used to is complete incompetence. And so he raises the floor to at least somewhat competent quarterback play. Is he going to move the needle a lot on wins and losses? Maybe not like a ton, but I think that the offense is going to work more efficiently.
This is
work
glowing.
better.
This is glowing.
What?
Sick.
I mean, what do you expect? He signed a
I know,
one-year deal. Like it is what it is. It's a bridge quarterback. They're hedging. They could still draft a quarterback if they really wanted, but that would be kind of weird considering they're paying two guys to be their quarterbacks this year. It's just a bridge year for the Giants. Like they're not delusioned or they're not delusional that they can, go out and like win a Super Bowl or whatever.
It's a bridge to nowhere.
Yeah, I suppose.
Heifetz, do you think this means they will not draft Shador if he's there at 3?
So I definitely think the Giants signing Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston together in the span of a week means that the Giants either want Cam Ward out of Miami and Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado and think they cannot get them, or they think Cam Ward's going to the Titans and they don't want Shedeur. And so I'm curious what you guys think, but I certainly think it means they think either they want one of those quarterbacks and they won't be there, or they don't want the one that's coming to them. I think at this point, I think we can kind of say, not quite with a bullet, but we certainly think Cam Ward's going to go to the Titans number one. And I think the Giants, are either sizing it up and saying we'd rather have Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss in the second round than Shedeur 3, or Shedeur's not going to be there at all. So which one of those, to me, as a Giants fan, selfishly, it doesn't even matter. Like, I don't think they're taking quarterback third overall. I do think they still need a quarterback in like a developmental guy. I mean, Russ is somehow 32, which is actually younger than I thought he was, honestly. I feel like I even got that wrong when I Googled it. No, he's 35. What am I talking about?
He's
36?
No, he's 36.
So yeah, Jameis is 30. Jameis is 31. Russ is 36. And also, only Jameis is signed next year. Even Tommy DeVito's just this year. So they still have just Jameis signed next year. So I don't think it rules out them getting like a second round quarterback. DK, as I need to root for something, should the Giants, are the Giants smarter to get like a Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss, who we haven't talked about a ton, in like the early second round? Is that smarter than getting Shedeur Sanders in the top of the first round?
I think I like that value a little bit more. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I like Shedeur Sanders more, but I think all things considered and what you're dropping him into in terms of like the supporting cast, the foundation that the Giants have right now, I don't think it like really sets him up for a ton of success. I think the better bet would be to draft Dart in the second round. Dart's got some interesting traits. I'm not quite on board with, the first round talk with Dart. I think there's a huge projection with him in terms of like, look, in his offense at Ole Miss, a lot of predetermined reads, a lot of one half of the field reads in terms of like what they do in that offense. He's getting rid of the ball quickly, but I think he showed some really interesting traits in terms of his ability and courage to throw in the face of pressure. He's attacking down the field, shows some accuracy on those passes over the middle of the field. There's something there with him, but I think he's going to require a little bit of development. So it would probably suit him more to be taken in the second round, sit behind Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston for at least a year, maybe two, see if you can develop him. Do like that old school thing where you develop a quarterback over multiple years. You know what I mean? I think that would suit the Giants more. That would suit Dart more. And, in theory, you could buy a little time if you're Dayball and Shane, because you got this guy that you're developing.
To me, the Russell Wilson Jameis thing is kind of like Shane and Dayball covering their ass a little bit for this season, because I think if they went in needing Shedeur and they have to draft him and he doesn't work, they're in the hot seat. And then if they don't draft Shedeur and they have a terrible quarterback situation and they win 3 games, they're probably out. So to me, it's like Jameis and Russ is just almost a way for them to buy themselves a season, maybe sneak out 7 wins, buy themselves one more year to the following year when maybe they'll have another shot at a quarterback they like. Because it seems to me like they probably don't want Shedeur, or they don't want to have to take Shedeur at 3. And so Russ and Jameis provides you that leeway where you can kind of, not overspend on a guy that you're perhaps not super high on.
And again, I do think there's a desperation going on here with the Giants, because I do think Daboll, the head coach, and Joe Shane, the GM, are probably fired if they don't have a way better season. And so on one hand, I'm like convinced of gaslighting myself. I'm like, it's better to not take a quarterback, because that way, like, they're not forcing it just to save their jobs. But then I look at it like, it's not great that they're just like cycling through they're like Stafford miss, and like they're going through all these guys and they're not getting them. But I do say at the end of the day, though, it's good. These are not big contracts. Jameis Winston signed for $4 million, and then there's incentives that he actually plays. Russell Wilson, $10 million. 10.5, let's say Russ plays and Jameis doesn't. That's less money than Washington's going to give Javon Kinlaw every year. So it's like, it's pretty cheap for quarterbacking, and it is going to be better. I
don't think this is a terrible move. I really don't.
It is a smart signing, and it's just a reminder of where they're at. But like, this is the best thing. I think, frankly, Craig, you guys, the Steelers, are in a worse position now, because the Steelers came out and said, we want to bring back either Fields or Russ. They were too cheap to bring Fields back. I think they wanted Fields. Couldn't get him. They wouldn't pay $20 million a year like the Jets did. Then
I don't think they wanted Russ, but yeah.
Well, they wanted Fields. Then they couldn't get Russ. But now your options are, you are now desperate for Aaron Rodgers, because let's be real, Steelers are in a pickle. If Rodgers goes to the Steelers, all right, cool. Like, I guess there's a weird thing going on there.
But if he doesn't,
you are now, it is 2022 all over again for Pittsburgh, because now you're talking about either looking at a veteran like Joe Flacco, Carson Wentz, but it's 2022 again, because you have the same draft pick. You have 21 overall. And then you have the same situation where it's Mason Rudolph or either like hoping Shedeur falls to you or like taking a Jackson Dart, like the second round quarterback, like you kind of reached on Kenny Pickett. And it's like a weird situation for Pittsburgh where like you actually like need Aaron Rodgers now that the Steelers have waited this out so much.
And you know what? I'm at the point now, I've thought about this a lot. I think I want the Steelers to trade for Kirk Cousins. Because I think the Steelers are kind of fucked because I think Aaron Rodgers has all the leverage. And like you said, we don't have any other option at quarterback. We can't get Cam Ward or Shedeur, most likely. And Rodgers is flirting with Minnesota and driving up Pittsburgh's price. And Pittsburgh has no other option. So you know what? Maybe we should go with Kirk Cousins, who's the same age as Russell Wilson, and now will be 2 years removed from his Achilles injury. And I know we have to trade for him rather than just sign him. But at this point, if Rodgers is going to dick us around this much and drive up the price tag, maybe we don't need him, and we can go with Kirk Cousins and have like a similar level of competency at quarterback. And then we can take a Will Howard in the third round, try to develop him, and then think about things next year. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
I think that people listening to this episode who have quarterbacks are like, Jesus, this is so pathetic for all
it's
of
grim.
them. Like
it's
the
grim.
things we're talking about is so sad. I
would take Aaron Rodgers, but I'm getting so fed up with all of this that
he's not even on your team, and you're sick of him. He's not even on your team.
And I'm getting close. I'm getting close to being so fed up that I'm like, let's just trade for Kirk Cousins. Can we get him for a third rounder, a fourth rounder? I'm down with that.
I actually don't want
every fan base across the NFL is anyone but Rodgers at this point.
Dude, that's how I felt about Russ eventually. I was like, man, it could have been Rodgers. Like, honestly,
this is funny, Heifetz, because I want to bring something up because I think at some point, I can't remember exactly when, it was towards the end of the season or maybe right after the season, we had this big argument of whether you would rather have Rodgers or Russell Wilson, and you and Craig were both vehemently pro Rodgers.
I would still rather have Rodgers than Russell
Wilson.
The
conversation was basically, if given one season deal, and I told you the Steelers made the AFC Championship game, and it was a competitive game. Is it more likely that was with Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson? I feel still that Rodgers, to me, is like more likely to get you there. He's also more likely to like destroy your team in the process.
I mean, the Steelers lost their last 5 games in a row with Russell Wilson. You don't think Aaron Rodgers playing 17 games with the Steelers yields a better season than Russell Wilson, DK?
No, I think Russell Wilson's better. I see here.
That's crazy to me, considering what the Steelers looked like at the end of last year.
I think so. There's always obviously a ton of variables. We don't have to have the Wilson versus Rodgers discussion again, but I did take the liberty.
This is like the worst first take segment of all time.
Yeah,
it's like when you truly have nothing to talk about. It's like, who's better, Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers?
You know what I want to compare, though, because I found this interesting and I wanted to compare it. So I did this while you guys were just talking. I compared Russell Wilson's season last year with the Steelers to Daniel Jones's season in 2022, where he had the best season of his career.
Okay.
Sorry,
these are very different arguments, but sure.
My point
these are not apples to apples.
It's not an argument. It's comparing the best quarterback season Heifetz has experienced since I've known him to what Russell Wilson did last year. And you could argue Russell Wilson was better last year in a lot of ways. Daniel Jones basically outrushed Russell Wilson that season.
Didn't he run for like 750 yards that year?
He did.
Daniel Jones?
He did, out of pure desperation. But if you
they were actually trying to get Daniel Jones killed.
Yeah.
If you look at the yards per attempt, Russell Wilson's better. Passing yards per attempt or per game better. Passing touchdowns in 5 fewer games, Russell Wilson was better. They had the same amount of picks. Passer rating, Russell Wilson was better last year. This is Russell Wilson's passing performance last year compared to the best season that Danny Heifetz has experienced as a Giants fan. I just wanted to point this out. Russell Wilson is like not a huge downgrade compared to what you're used to, Heifetz.
Well, so I know he's. I agree, he's better than last Tommy DeVito or like Drew Lock, obviously up there with 07 Tom Brady.
Just saying the level of competence is raised.
But that's the thing. My brother and my brother's like, this is great. What are you talking about? Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, we're tanking. We're getting Arch Manning, and I'm like, no.
You're
going
going
to play
towards
themselves
mediocrity.
out of that. Like they're going to be good enough that there's no chance they're going to get the first pick with the Russ Jameis thing. Like I think they're absolutely not going to get a top 3 pick to be quarterback range.
Shane and Daboll will be gone if that happens, and they are trying to prioritize their own jobs first.
But Russ and Jameis are also absolutely bad enough that the ceiling of this Giants team, the ceiling is a wild card. And losing and I think that's frankly the 10 out of 10 outcome is Russell Wilson, Jameis get the Giants to the first round of the playoffs and probably get their doors blown off. I'm like, that's the best outcome. So again, it's the best you can ask. It's a shitty team. Frankly, if this means that the Giants get Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter with the 3rd pick, that's awesome to me. Like if this, I love Travis Hunter. I'm so fine with Abdul Carter. Like, there is hope.
I think the jokes online about Russ and Jameis are fun, but ultimately, I think there's a chance that the Giants dodge a huge bullet here in taking one of these quarterbacks in a shitty quarterback class, third overall.
And that's the thing. If you have Jackson Dart sitting, and then you have, like, let's say the Giants get Jackson Dart, which, again, it's kind of silly. Who knows if that's going to happen. But the Giants get a quarterback and stick him on the bench. At least I have an idea that this kid's developing. And you could, DK, NFLDraft.theRinger.com, you compared him to Andy Dalton, which, you know what? At least, fine. You know what? No, I like that because at least I don't get my hopes up that much.
He's to me, he's like a good backup who could turn into a starter, and it wouldn't be that surprising.
And Andy Dalton's as good as everyone around him. Mm-hmm. If the people around Andy Dalton are Malik Neighbors and Travis Hunter, that's kind of sick. And you know what? And that's where I'm at. And like, so I think my answer to how's the Russell Wilson thing? And I think there's going to be a funny quarterback thing with the Giants. This is like a take that I'm wrong about, but like I'm going to be right about. And we should play this back in week 6. The offensive players, Malik Neighbors, and if they take Travis Hunter, are going to want to play with Jameis. But the Giants' defensive players are going to want Russ. Because the defensive players are going to be sick of getting stops and going back out there. And then the offensive players are going to hate Russell Wilson by week 8. But Neighbors and Travis Hunter is incredible. And the Giants also need a cornerback. So I will be thrilled if they get Travis Hunter. And I don't know. At least I get to watch football. I don't know. It's also, wait, did you guys see his new catchphrase?
No.
Who? Russ?
Yeah, wait.
Does he have one really, or was it like
Kai, will you
the
play
internet making up?
Play the thing. He did the video.
What's up, guys? Russell Wilson here, quarterback of the New York Giants. Man, I'm so excited to be here, and let's make sure we make this happen. Let's do whatever it takes. Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue. That's fine.
I had such mixed emotions watching that, and I was just like, he was like, go Big Blue. And my first thought
do people say that? Is that what people say?
Yeah, they call Giants Big Blue. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think I am upset that I was like, oh, I'm going to get into that. 2, I actually was like, it's so weird that after 15 years of making fun of Russell Wilson, I was like, this guy's like my guy. Like, I root for this person now. And 3, I was like,
the turntables.
And then I was like, thank God it's not Rodgers. Like, I actually, watching Russ in that moment, I realized how much it would bother me if every time Rodgers opened his mouth, it was like Giants quarterback Aaron Rodgers said. And I'm like, I'll take Russ's weird cringeness and psychopathic Subway commercials and whatever. Like, sure.
No, I'd still rather have Rodgers over Russ right now. I think after having been through the Russ thing, I'd rather have Aaron Rodgers. But I also think I'd rather have Kirk Cousins over Aaron Rodgers. That's the order of of how I'm thinking right now.
Bleak.
This is just slow horses, but for quarterbacks. It's just all these guys that should have been put down.
Can you have a catchphrase if you don't even know if you're going to be the starter? I'm not sure you can have a catchphrase.
He's going to be the starter.
Expects to be the starter.
All right. Well, if all the offensive players on your team don't want you to be the starter, I feel like you can't have a catchphrase.
But they don't know that. The offensive players hear the Russ cliches and are like, he won a Super Bowl. This guy knows what he's doing. They're like, look what he did for DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf had like top 5, but he had top 10 most touchdowns through 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. And that they get themselves hype. Then they go through a month and then they're like,
that was 3 teams ago. But yeah,
but you're a receiver. You're irrational. You're telling yourself shit. And then
Malik Neighbors was like 15 when that happened. But yeah.
I know he was 10. He was 9. He probably didn't remember it. Other stuff so anything else on Russ? I mean, this is now going to be a thing forever, like just Russ.
Congratulations. We all get to experience Russ.
We've all passed Russ around.
Yeah.
Now he's landed in New York.
We're just having a quarterback key party over here. Just coming.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Are there any other players in the history of the league who have been on our 3 teams specifically? I'm sure there are.
Oh, like immaculate crit.
Yeah, we should figure that out.
Wow, that's a good question, guys. Who've been on all 3?
Like, what are the odds of this?
I'm sure
Russell
there's someone
Wilson's on all 3 of our teams.
The Giants and Seahawks have swapped a lot of players recently, but I don't know.
We'll look into it.
Yeah. That's a good trivia game. The other thing that happened, Stefon Diggs signed with the Patriots for, it's reported as 3 years, $69 million. It's a 1-year deal for like $26 million, which is still a lot.
That's a lot. Isn't that more than he signed for last year with Houston? Wasn't it like a 1-year 2020 with Houston?
That was bizarre. I've never seen anything like what they did, where they gave a second round for him and then removed the years on his contract, which I feel like I've just never seen. Like, the whole point of giving up a high pick is to have the years on the deal.
Yeah.
The Texans were like, we want the flexibility to get rid of this guy that we just gave a future second for, which I didn't understand. I think it was, I don't know. But on one hand, I'm like, that's a lot of money. On the other hand, I'm like, honestly, it's monopoly money. It honestly is kind of like, I don't know, I wish I had a better analogy, but it's kind of like you put money in a Dave & Buster's card and you're leaving. Like, the Patriots have so much cap money. They have to spend some of it.
What?
Dave and Buster's card?
You put money on a Dave and Buster's card?
I don't know. I think so. Yeah, you have to load
I don't
it,
understand that.
and
reference.
then you use the card and the points. I don't know. The point is that the cap space for the Patriots is not going to expire, but like you do have to use it over a period of time.
Right, there's like a salary cap floor.
There's we say the ceiling, but it's also a floor, and they do have to hit the spending at some point. So like at some point, they do need something like this. Andrew Callahan, Boston Herald made a great point. Just at the end of the day, they need a receiver who can beat man coverage. And like they have been one of the worst teams at beating man coverage. And you don't want teams to be able to play beat man coverage against you. It means their guys are just better than yours in a league where everything's supposed to be about offense beating defense and defense is kicking the shit out of you. So like you need someone to do it. Diggs is there. Beggars can't be choosers. I think they've
tried to sign a whole bunch of other guys. They've been connected on, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk. There's been a whole bunch of like trade rumors over the last couple of years. They just haven't been able to close any deals. So, they get Stefon Diggs. He was pretty good last year before he got hurt. He's coming off of an ACL tear now.
So he's 31
he's
if you like the trade, or sorry, if you like
He's
the
31.
signing, he's 31. If
Soon
you
to
don't
be
like it, he
32.
turns 32.
He'll be 32 in November, I believe.
His knee is really 32 years old.
Craig, where are you at on this trade? Do you think that Diggs is 31 or do you think Diggs is turning 32?
I don't think you can be above the age of 30 coming off an ACL tear and not be the higher end of your age. Like you have to be 32 if you're coming off a knee injury like that. I don't know. This is kind of a desperation move. I guess the money's fine. This doesn't inspire a ton of confidence in me. I think Diggs is in a different point of his career. They needed somebody and they got somebody, and that's kind of all I think about this.
To your point, Craig, they needed somebody. Have you taken a minute to look at the receiver
brutal.
core for New England? It's like decorated an early fuck.
I think they actually.
What did you just say?
Oh, it's just that's a line from Van Wilder. It's like, wow, some pad you got here, decorated an early fuck. I just think it's hilarious. But it's just like there's no theme here. It's just a bunch of fucking random guys. Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas, Mac Hollins, Kendrick Bourne.
Dude, these
Javon
guys are
Baker,
all also. I have to. Here's the
Jalen
thing.
Polk, who was maybe the worst rookie of all time.
These are all like, they're all kind of shitheads. Like, I'm being honest. Like, these are all guys who had like these are the Bill Simmons rule of like you can have a crazy guy on your team, but you don't want multiple because then they hang out together. Half this receiver room is bonkers. Matt Collins doesn't wear shoes and eats only foods he can eat with his hands.
He's bonkers in a good way, though.
But he's the most mature of them all. I mean, Jalen Polk, I kind of think that his issues were like Gerard Mayo head coach related, not doing, but he had 12 catches. He was the 37th pick at 12
His confidence was shot. He's lost all his
Javon Baker
confidence.
had 4 catches last year, and like that's the Giants' Hard Knocks board, among other things that leaked, was that they had like 4 guys with character concerns in that little color, and one of them is Javon Baker. There's like weird stuff going on there. Now you're adding the irony is they were going to pay Chris Godwin this money. They were going to pay him too much money to get Chris Godwin, who is also dealing with a knee or like an ankle injury, but he's young, a culture guy, blocks, universally beloved,
younger.
I
think he's like 29.
5 years younger.
No, I don't think so. I think he's like 4 years younger.
So
what are we talking about here? I think Diggs is 31 and Chris Godwin is 29. I think they're like 2.5 years apart.
I'm just getting all these numbers wrong today. I'm just
5 years younger. What are we talking about?
We can stretch
totally
the
wrong.
time.
I'm
the
totally
You
wrong.
thought Russell Wilson was?
now-
You thought Russell Wilson was 31? What's happening?
I've been 30 for 11 days or whatever, 9 days, and I'm
Dude. Chris Godwin's 29 and Stefon Diggs is 31.
I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Okay.
I don't know, but like I don't know. But
Godwin
I
is
think what's-
beloved in the locker room and like the nicest guy in the world. And Diggs, obviously, a bit of a hothead.
well,
No
that's
one
the
wants
funny thing.
him to date their sister. Let's be clear.
that's
Keep your
the-
sisters away from him.
Well, that was the video they did in the Vikings
Yeah,
locker
there's
room
the
back in the
Vikings-
day.
if
They
you
interviewed
don't-
the players.
If
and
you
it
don't
was like,
know, basically they asked a bunch of players
Who's the last player they wanted to date
the
their
last
sister?
player you'd let date your sister, and everyone was like, "Oh."
there was one
Diggs.
answer. Like
Diggs.
no one said
Diggs.
anyone else. Literally, no one said anyone else.
Don't you think the Steelers? I know Bill was
Diggs.
making. I know Bill was making fun of the DK Metcalf contract, but now when he was tweeting like I'm trying to stay positive after this Diggs signing, now I'm kind of looking back and being like, maybe the Patriots should have given DK Metcalf 5 years, $150 million.
I mean, now the tuxedos seem kind of fucked up. I mean, again, to put that in context, whatever Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston combined are like $15 million. 16. I can't really do math today, clearly. But Diggs is getting 26. So Diggs is getting 10 million more than Jameis and Russ together. Make of that what you will. I do think it's funny that you have this like very underperforming, very immature receiver room, and you were going to get Chris Godwin as the role model, and now the role model is Stefon Diggs, which I just think is kind of just funny to me. So we'll see. But again, the way Craig and I are talking ourselves into these quarterbacks, the Patriots are talking themselves into, can he be 65% of what he was for Josh Allen when he basically was able to track all these deep balls for Josh Allen? That's kind of similar-ish problem with Pats have is Drake May is playing better quarterback than the receivers are capable of delivering. Also, the offensive line's really bad. But basically, if Diggs is open, Drake May could get him the ball. We need can he be open? And the worst thing is they light $26 million on fire this year. It's sure. Like, the Pats are not that different than the Giants right now. Like, the team sucks, but you just throw stuff at Drake May and just see what sticks. I think you need to help him develop. And so I get it, even though it's probably weird.
I just think a team that can't draft wide receivers, every year they fuck up drafting wide receivers, maybe go get a guy in his prime, overpay him a little bit, DK Metcalf is what I'm talking about, and let him be the guy for the next 5 years, be with Drake May. Instead, you're doing a 1-year gamble on a 32-year-old Stefon Diggs coming off an ACL. You have no other receivers and you suck at drafting them. I know they have like a new regime in now, but I worry about the Pats.
Not a great start.
I worry about the Pats offense, to be honest. I really don't know who's even like, who are they going to give the ball to?
I agree that in retrospect, you'd be like, why? I would probably just do that trade, wouldn't you? Like, just do that deal with DK Metcalf. So, and also, it's just funny to me how Mike Vrabel's going to handle this. I've called him like Parcells and Mike Tomlin, and I think that this is the real Mike. Let's see how Vrabel handles all these personalities. So,
feel bad for Drake May.
I don't.
He deserves better.
Anything else on Russ or Diggs or anything?
No, we got a fun season coming up.
Oh my God. I can't. This is unbelievable, man.
I think this is the weirdest season we're coming into.
This is
Aaron Rodgers,
I
Russell
agree.
Wilson, the Giants. It's going to be a weird year. Sam Darnold on the Seahawks.
Oh my God.
Dude. I want to get into the most divisive players in the NFL draft because I think one of the most interesting parts of the draft is how people can like just watch the same player, the same plays, the same tape, and have like completely different opinions. And I think that it gets to like it actually gets, if you start pulling on the thread, it gets to like, how do you watch football? What do you want in a player? What is this person how are people supposed to play? What matters to you? And like, it's kind of like, you actually kind of get big stuff, but then also sometimes people are like, I don't like the way he gets up. Not very athletic. So it's just funny. It's just funny to see what sticks in people's minds. Icks, as DK would say. So we're going to go through people. I want to start with Ted McMillan, the receiver out of Arizona, who I hate the term falling. I don't think guys necessarily quote unquote rise or fall in the process as much as public perception catches up to what teams were thinking.
It's the vicissitudes of draft season. You can't, for 2 months, you're not going to be able to maintain whatever reputation you're having. You're going to go up and down.
Wait, I got to Google.
You're going to have like an entire Hollywood career over the course of 2 months before the draft.
Vicissitudes. What is that? I'm going to Google that till I learn it. Natural change or mutation visible in nature. Nice. Good word.
It's a good one.
It's a great word.
But yeah, Ted McMillan right now, he's in an ebb right now. And then by the time the draft is around, perhaps he'll be back in a flow. DK,
my understanding of Tet was basically, I don't want to call anyone Mike Evans, like certain players are too, but basically the idea that he's an incredible contested catch receiver, the volleyball thing, like he can high point a football, and there's a few different ways to get quote unquote get open in the NFL, and you can just have the jitteriness at a Kadarius Toney, if you will, the jitteriness at the snap where you're just open, the technicality, or just like really polished stuff like Devontae Adams, where you're basically like an NBA player and you're like incredibly thoughtful movement where you're just know where your spot is and you're going to set people up, or just like really precise route running. And then there's just like the art of like late breaking hand fighting, speed and late breaking hand fighting, like Mike Evans, where he's like faster than you think at that size, or just like covered. Oh, he's open. And I feel like, is the question with Ted McMillan, basically, we don't know about the speed, so we're just kind of, and we don't know about the polished route running, so we're kind of banking on him magically getting open in a world where contested catches isn't really enough to be like a first-round pick?
I think the knock on him, one of the big knocks on him is like, I think the lack of explosiveness, the lack of separation early on in his route. You know, he's a big, tall athlete. So, you know, he's not necessarily going to be able to shake these really jittery, fast, explosive corners that are running 4.3s. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not necessarily a matchup he's going to win. But I think he has, and I remember hearing Michael Irvin talk about this like 10 years ago, and it's really stuck in my brain ever since, that it doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter if you separate early, but the most important thing to do is separate late in your route. Separate when the ball is getting there. That's what Mike Evans does. That's what some of the great receivers do. That's what T. Higgins does. And I see him as like I see Ted McMillan as a T. Higgins style receiver where, you know, again, he's not like a big time separator, but he separates late. He knows how to use his body to generate just a little bit of space so he can catch the football. He can box out a opposing corner, keep him off the ball. He's really tough. He's really strong. And I want to be clear, I don't think Ted McMillan is winning just a bunch of contested catches, because I don't think that's necessarily a thing you want to bank on going from college to the pros. Oh, he wins a bunch of contested catches. That's one of those things where it's like highly volatile year in and year out. What I think he does well is separate late in his routes where he just does enough to get open, whether it's like a little shoulder shimmy to like create separation, little, push off, whatever, nuanced little things where he's just able to, like I said, create that space, whether it's by the sideline or whether it's coming back to the football, where he has the ability to do that pretty consistently. So I'm not too worried about his ability to separate. I think he's big, tough, fluid athlete, just a natural pass catcher, natural catcher of the football, which is important. He doesn't look like he's fighting the ball. He doesn't look like, it's a challenge for him to catch balls that are kind of like coming in laser fast or whatever. He just has that natural ability to get the ball and from different angles. Like he can go low to scoop it up. He can go high to pluck it out of the air. So I don't know. I'm just confident in what he can do in the pros. I think his game translates. I think and the question is, not to ramble, but is he like a true number one? I think some people, maybe that's why they're not having him in like a top 10 type discussion, where is he going to be a true number one receiver in the mold of like a Jamar Chase or whatever? Maybe not, but is he going to be a really good number two at the very least? I think so. And the question is, where do you take a guy like that? Where would you take a T. Higgins? Where would you take, Devontae Smith went a couple of years ago in the top 10, and he's like a really good number two.
It's so funny that like everybody using this, oh, he's T. Higgins. Where do you take a wide receiver two? T. Higgins is a wide receiver one. T. Higgins would be the best receiver on like 15 NFL teams. Devontae Smith would also be the number one wide receiver on many teams in the NFL.
I think there's it's a vague term too, like a number one receiver.
Because he's really an outside receiver.
Yeah.
Which I think he can do.
Somebody saying he's a wide receiver too suggests that he wouldn't be a top 32 receiver in the NFL, which I think is kind of insane for his production. I don't know. To me, this guy is big.
He's a go-to
smooth,
guy.
and he's incredibly agile for his size.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are starting to talk themselves in circles, and that's why he's falling a little bit. But I don't think it's a knock on a guy that he's not going to be Jamar Chase. There's like 3 of those in the NFL.
Right.
Like if he's going to be T. Higgins, which is one of the best, probably 10 to 15 wide receivers in the league, and that's his ceiling, that's still a pretty good ceiling to me.
So
I agree with you completely. For the record, I agree completely with what you just said, Craig. I just think the discussion right now is it's what it is. Does he have that elite potential to be a quote unquote wide receiver one? I don't know.
I just love that people are picking he's T. Higgins. And it's like, because T. Higgins is the only guy who's technically a wide receiver too because of his roster, the team he's on. But in reality, T. Higgins is a fucking top 12 receiver in the league, probably.
Yeah.
Or maybe not top 12, probably top 20. I don't know.
The next guy here, I think, is kind of almost like the opposite here of Shamar Stewart, who's the pass rusher at Texas A&M. And this guy's different because I think insane athlete who hasn't done a ton with it, right, DK?
Yeah, and I remember early on in the process, probably like in October or November, I remember I texted you. I was like, this Shamar Stewart guy, like he might end up being one of my guys. I kind of have backed off on that a little bit because I think the hype has gone through the roof and people are talking about him as a potential top 10 pick. There was a moment there where people were comparing him to Travon Walker, who went overall number one based on traits, based on physical talent, based on potential trajectory, all that stuff. I don't think Shamar Stewart's going to go number one, but I think you could make the argument he's an even better athlete. He's got better overall traits than Travon Walker did coming out of Georgia. And so, 6'5", 267 pounds, 34-inch arms. He ran a 4.59 40-inch vert at 260 pounds, 10'11" broad jump. So he's explosive lower body. According to the RAS score, who Math Bomb, check it out on Twitter. He does these really great, basically comparisons of different athleticism using all kinds of different variables.
So it's relative athletic scores.
Right.
So it's basically they do all the combine
Weight,
tests,
height,
and then it's like
size. Yeah.
How athletic is this guy based on the measurables of everyone we've measured in the last 40 years?
Shamar Stewart at defensive end is the number one ranked athlete from 1987 to 2025. He is the best athlete at defensive end, according to the RAS score.
I'm sorry. We have to read that again.
Who are the other guys on the list?
DK, pull that up.
I don't know
I'm
off the top of my head, but
again.
It's probably like Myles Garrett, some of these great, some of the great all-time pass rushers. I'm sure there are misses in that category because being a great athlete does not mean you're going to be a great pass rusher.
Yeah, right. You get a little like Jadeveon Clowney type.
But again, 1,829 defensive ends at the combine since 1987. And Shamar Stewart's relative athletic score is first, which is both mouth-watering and bonkers and also So why did he had 1.5 sacks last year?
Yeah, 1.5 sacks in each.
How
of
is that possible?
There's just one problem, Happy.
I think they moved the decimal incorrect. Was it, was it 15?
It's like bowl, where you're just looking at it. You're like, you must be great.
So this is what actually I think makes him such a conundrum and why I've backed off on him being kind of like one of my guys. Because my initial thing was
there's just one problem, Happy. Is that the problem with Shamar Stewart? He's not any good?
Yeah.
No,
it's
and
the
I
Billy
don't
Bean
think,
thing. It's like, we're not selling jeans.
I don't think he's bad. For the record, to be clear,
That's
I don't
good.
think he's
All
bad.
right.
I think he has a ton of
bad.
potential. I think he shows that he's a talented pass rusher. He's disruptive. His production as a sack creator has been abysmal, and that's really worrisome. However, 30 pressures in 2024, according to PFF, which is solid. 16% win rate in true pass rush situations, which is solid. It's not like he's really bad at rushing the passer. It's just like,
is he getting doubled more? Are they like cheating the running back over to him more? Like, what's going on?
I mean, I think there's a little bit of that. I think mainly it's just he needs to develop more counters. He relies a little bit too much on his power, converting speed to power. I think he just needs to get more, more moves in his repertoire and basically be able to like string a couple different moves together and basically just be a more nuanced pass rusher, have a better plan. Because right now he's more of just like a raw super athlete who relies on that athleticism and speed. And I think he just has to, basically get developed. And I think there's definitely a world in which he ends up being a top tier pass rusher in the NFL, like 2 or 3 years down the line. But like a lot of pass rushers, this is just a lot of volatility here. I think you could end up down the line looking at him as a bust because he, just never developed those skills. He just never really got it or whatever. But again, the athletic traits are unbelievable, unbelievable. And so I'm willing to bet. I would bet on this guy. Like I would be excited to get him for my team. But I think there is a lot of potential volatility and variance here.
These athletes like Shamar Stewart are the kind of guys that will be in the NFL for 10 years. And the question is if it's for one team or 5 teams, because every team's going to take a lottery ticket of guys who are this athletic. I think this is something where something we probably don't talk about enough about why things matter is the workplace politics, which I don't want to overstate, but it's worth talking about because I think all these guys we're talking about the divisiveness for the most part are really athletic people who didn't do shit or people who did a lot of shit that aren't that athletic. And like, there is some workplace politics afoot because in a perfect workplace, you have, it's not like the Carolina Panthers have taken Ted McMillan. You have the general manager who has a different kind of back. You have the coaching staff, you have the scouts, and then you have an owner above it all. And there's all these different wings of football. And so the coaches think the scouts don't get football or how to coach players. The scouts think the coaches don't know how to identify talent. And so there are some teams that are, the Rams are incredibly integrated between the scouts and the coaches and McVay and Leslie had a great relationship. Like they really understand the holistic process. There are other places, like I will just pick one that is over, is Jacksonville, Trent Baalke, where sometimes the positive way to view it is Trent Baalke was obsessed with crazy athletes with huge wingspans. A more cynical way to look at it, which I'm not saying this is what's in his hearts of hearts, but there's a cynical way to look at it is if the front office delivers to the coaching staff let me see here, most athletic defensive end in 40 years, and he sucks, is that really my fault or do they not know how to coach him? And so
right.
I am not saying that's always what happens. The inverse, however, is how these conversations go, which is I think the reason guys like this don't fall, like a Shamar Stewart, the athletes don't fall, but the Ted McMillans do, is the inverse. If Ted McMillan gets drafted high and is awesome, that's cool. But if Ted McMillan sucks, the front office has to explain why a guy that wasn't that athletic goes, because the coaching staff at some point is like, look, doesn't have speed. We knew it coming in. And it's like, and so I think that is the thing that's a dynamic here, where sometimes the guys who don't have the arm, like at some point, if Will Campbell just can't play left tackle, the offensive line coach isn't going to walk in and be like, he totally could, but I failed him. It's just not how life goes.
It's easy. It's easier to explain failure when the guy was a freak athlete. It's an easier excuse to make.
Yes. It's his fault. It's the player's fault because he doesn't want it bad enough, or he can't learn, or it's the coach's fault. But it's harder. But if the issue is a physical limitation, that's the cloud hovering over it all. And so I'm not trying to place blame on coaches or GMs. This happens in every workplace. There's natural things that happen. And so there is frankly a cover your ass fear that clouds over the guys that don't have a measurable to point to be like, well, this will save my ass if this goes wrong. Whereas the athleticism is like the sex appeal of the athleticism is cool. It's also a shield. And I think that's why teams talk themselves in every sport into the what could be.
Yeah, there's an old like scouting maxim. I think I've heard Dane Brugler mention this a bunch of times. It's not like necessarily his term, but it's like scouts have this maxim where it's like scout traits, not production. I think from the scouting point of view, it makes sense because you're trying to find the truly elite blue chip players that will turn into franchise cornerstones. And in a lot of cases, I think coaches are like, give me a guy who can play right now because I don't know how long I'm going to be coaching this freaking team. You know what I mean? I need to fill spots in my starting lineup. Yeah. I'm not worried about what's going to happen 3 years from now, you know? So there is a disconnect, I think, in a lot of cases, not all cases, but I think Stewart is basically the best example of just the difficulty in scouting, the difficulty in projecting what traits are going to do at the next level. And Heifetz, like you're laying out how there's differences in terms of like agenda from the coaches, the scouts, the GM, the owner. This is why there's so many variables in draft scouting. It's so impossible to figure out what these guys are going to do in the pros. There's just so many variables. There's too many variables to account for. And so I think a lot of times, like from a scouting point of view, scouting the traits and looking at those traits is like the least. It's the one thing you can do is basically like this guy is an elite athlete. We can coach him up. He has the traits to do this.
And that's where the position matters. Defensive end, and again, Shamar Stewart, it's not that all great athletes become defensive ends, but almost all great defensive ends are like 90th
great
plus
athletes.
Percentile defensive
100%.
I'd be willing to risk a draft pick on a freak athlete at defensive end specifically, at edge rusher specifically, more than any other position, I feel like, right?
Yeah, and like there's
freak athlete at wide receiver doesn't always translate, but if I was going to make a bet on a freak athlete at any position, it would be as an edge rusher.
Odafe Owe, who the Ravens took in the first round, the back of the first round a couple years ago, came out of Penn State. He had no sacks. Yeah. First round pass rusher, but he's a crazy athlete. And you know what? He's solid.
Like, the other one I would point out last year, we were talking about this time of year, Chop Robinson, who I think I said at the time, like he has the most explosive first step of any pass rusher I've seen since I've been doing this. I think like he is so twitchy. That doesn't always translate, but I think it has for Chop Robinson. Like that is an important variable to have as a pass rusher is just the ability to get off the ball quickly.
And to your point, Micah Parsons had 5 sacks. There's 6.5 sacks in 2 seasons at Penn State. Then he had 13 as a rookie in Dallas.
I know, it's wild.
He wasn't playing the same position.
Those guys, those outliers, and I mean, you could point to Josh Allen being, bet on traits versus production is another great example. But there's the NFL is littered with guys who, developed because they have this elite athleticism, and then they get some coaching. They get, they're doing this full time, and they blossom into this all-time great player. There's also a ton of examples of guys who are really good athletes who just aren't very good at football, or maybe they didn't work hard enough for it. Maybe they land in a bad situation where they're not getting great coaches or whatever. But I mean, this is the allure of these elite athletes. I think that what we're saying is pretty obvious. But
on that note, I want to go to the T-Rex club because the other kind of measurable that matters to teams is the arm length at certain positions.
Yeah.
And so you look at offensive tackle, where, again, you just want to do like a cartoon and just, Tom and Jerry just holding the dog, holding the cat, running at him or whatever. Like, you need that. And then also defensive tackles. So, DK, 2 guys that people are concerned. One, Will Campbell, LSU, the offensive tackle. And then some people are like, well, his arms are 29 inches and we really prefer like 34. So he's a guard. And then also Mason Graham. But we can start with Will Campbell, where I guess, first of all, explain to people how much of it is just an ick, kind of like he's not 6 feet tall, his arms don't start with a 30, versus how much does it matter?
I mean, I think it does matter because, again, we just got done talking about how the best athletes in the NFL, arguably some of the best athletes in the world, are playing pass rusher. So having that little bit of extra length where you can reach out, run guys by the pocket, you're not even necessarily blocking them. You're just like getting in their way long enough.
You're hurting.
Right. Like you're getting in their way long enough for them to just not be able to get a sack.
Speed bump.
So the length certainly matters. I'm not saying length.
Corral.
Right. The length does matter, but I think
write that down, Craig.
What we're talking about,
no, I won't. I refuse.
But what we're talking about is I think the question is like, what's the difference between? So he was Will Campbell, LSU tackle, measured in at his arm length was 32 and 5/8 inches at the combine. It was 33 inches at his pro day. do you know the difference in 3/8 of an inch? Like that is insanely.
I do,
minuscule.
yes.
Who among us does not know the difference in 3/8 of an inch? I
And
think we
so,
all.
I don't know.
I'm intimately
I think there's
familiar with
just-
3/8 of an inch. Yeah.
So I think you just have to look at, what does he do to make up for that quote unquote lack of length that he has in his arm length? Where, ideally he's going to be 34 inches long arms, because it just helps you. It's like a game of inches. It really does help you. Christ,
Sorry.
can I say anything without
I'm
you
sorry.
laughing?
Have you seen those TikToks where it's like women watching, like women like being around their husbands watching football, and it's just Troy Aikman like, "Wow, really? Came to that guy's
slammed
face."
it into the hole there.
Yeah, it's just like, and she's just like, it's like a super cut of Troy Aikman. Just thought she's just like, "What are you watching?"
That exploded in his face. Yeah.
Oh, that really blew up right on. It just over and over again. And then every time we were in the draft, I'm sorry to be a 12-year-old boy, but like the way we talk about defensive ends is just like, all right, love the Melko, love the get off, and then it's just a penetrate, bend, finish. And I'm just like, is it me? And I'm sorry, I know it's me.
DK, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but like, how many good tackles in the NFL are there currently that have 32-inch arms?
I mean, I think it's definitely
I
the
actually can
minority.
pull this up.
There are a few outliers who are really good. Jason Peters, I think, was one of them. Like famously didn't have very long arms, but he was a great left tackle for a long time. There are guys where they've been quote unquote outliers and they have short arms and been really, really elite tackles.
So what is the ideal arm length? So he's 32 and 5/8. What is the ideal arm length?
It's like 34 inches plus.
So we're talking about an 1.3 inches.
Yeah.
If his arms were 1
Which
inch
is what,
longer,
like
essentially.
that?
Yes. That is, I mean, could he just wear gloves with some padding on the ends of them?
Oh, like
Just
goalies
say-
just wear bigger equipment. Yeah. Just like, we need
got the
It's Always Sunny in
eyeball, though.
Philadelphia. Yeah, just get the big hands.
Yeah, it's like stuff your
Just a
gloves
prosthetic.
a little bit. Put some like tissue at the end of the fingertips in your gloves. Now you got 36 inch arms.
He's stuffing his gloves.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that is a good example of kind of the absurdity of all this. I feel like, is he a good blocker or not? Is like
I will
what you're
say,
looking for.
when you look at it,
Can he
like,
move?
I know that it sounds. I go back and forth on all the time. Where I'm like,
What
on
does
one
the
hand,
data
it's
show?
insane. Well, I'll read it right now, but I will just say the one thing I want to frame this data with the context of 2 or 3 inches. To DK's point, these are the best athletes in the world. The difference between failure and success is
Razor's
like
edge.
a third of a second. Like if you block a guy for 2.5 seconds, like give or take, you won, and 2.1 is a failure. So that's the context. It's like the gap. What is that? That's the gap of a fastball or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. So if you just look first, this is like every starting left tackle, every starting right tackle in the NFL. One, overwhelming how many of them are just first rounders. Just overwhelming starting there. And it's, arm length for these guys, 36, 33, 35, 35, 34, 35, 35, 35, 36, 34, 34, 33, 33, 34, 30. Like Matt Miller on Blue Sky put this together, NFL Draft Scout. Literally eyeballing it, there is one left tackle under 34 inches on this list. It's Bernard Ryman for the Colts. Then Jalen Moore for the Chiefs, who's a backup tackle they just inserted. Rashawn Slater for the Chargers, and then at right tackle, it's a little
Slater
more
was
forgiving.
another great one. Slater was a good one, a good example because I think people were talking about him in a very similar light to Will Campbell this year when he was coming out. People were like, he's a guard because he doesn't have enough length, and he's one of the best left tackles in the NFL.
But I will say the other ones, Penei Sewell's 33 inches. Luke Goddard's 32, but the point being, so what's his official measurement here? Will Campbell is 29.
No, it was 33.
Oh, no, sorry. I can't get one number right today. Yeah, 32 and 5/8.
So I'm probably going
to half an inch within Penei
So,
Sewell.
how good of a prospect is he? Because basically what Heifetz's list tells me is like, all right, there are like 5 tackles in the NFL right now starting with 33-inch arms, which is basically what Will Campbell has. Mm-hmm. But it basically comes down to, all right, is he worthy? Like if he had 34-inch arms, do you think he would easily be a top 5 pick in the NFL? Like from a talent perspective, is he that good?
Yes. Which is
then
why
you should just take him.
Which is why I think this is just kind of silly. Here, I have a question though. This is just a generic question about what we just talked about, and maybe I'm messing up what survivorship bias is. But isn't like the fact that everyone's so worried about 34 inches being at tackle going to skew the numbers so everyone at tackle has 34 inches?
Yes,
arms?
I think that's sample selection. That's
whatever.
kind of
I fucked up the term, but like the fact that teams are so fucking worried about 34-inch number,
I think, this is
a
sample
big
selection.
part of the reason there's only guys who are 34 inches and plus at arm length. At the position. But that being said, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I think it does matter. But it's just how much does it matter? I guess.
No, you're right.
Question.
On one level, it's kind of like polling people in politics you're going to vote for on the phone in 2025, where you're like, people answering that are like inherently more into politics than they were 40 years ago. The other thing, though, the other person the last thing I want to say about Will Campbell. So shout out to Steve Mensch on Todd's show. Made a good point that basically one of the reasons you take a tackle so high, it's not just the ceiling of the player. It's you want a high floor. Like Trevor Lawrence, I think is a good example. Whatever you think of Trevor Lawrence, this is kind of his floor, which is still an average quarterback. Like maybe he's not Peyton Manning, but like Trevor Lawrence is still going to be an NFL starter for like another half decade. So that's like part of it. And I think Mensch was making the point that if Will Campbell can't play tackle, is he going to be able to play guard? Because he's so big, 6'6", and it's like, some teams are able to get him Mekhi Becton 6'7" down to guard.
There's a lot of guards who are 6'6", I feel like.
It's true, but it's not quite as simple as people are making it. And I think that is what could scare teams off if their teams get scared off, is like, it's not as easy as it sounds to play guard. It's kind of like what Solak said last year of just, switch to left tackle. It's like, okay, can you wipe your ass with your other hand? It's like, it's not quite as easy for everyone as you think, as it sounds.
I understand that.
But we'll see.
I personally believe, and look, I think everybody sees everything a little differently, and that's why we're having this discussion. I personally think Campbell has a high floor. And so I would be willing to take him that high. But I think that the question is, and the fact that there is uncertainty is why we're having this discussion. It's why it's such a hot topic is, are you going to take a guard in the top 5?
Yeah.
Maybe not. But ultimately, to wrap that up, I think he's a really good blocker. I think he can block guys. He moves his feet really well. He has good balance. He's really smart. He's battle tested. He's played a bunch of games. I don't know. It feels like we're overthinking it.
I liked his pro day interview, and he was like, "Nobody had an issue with me when they didn't know how long my arms were. Why do they have an issue now?"
Yeah, that's funny. That I think is ultimately the point of it all. Is like, did you notice it?
Right.
No? Cool. Speaking of which, someone who it was noticed, Luther Burden, the receiver at Mizzou. Sorry, Luther Burden III, which we'll see, like nominative determinism. We'll see if he's a problem or like a problem. But DK,
right?
This is
Luther
a guy.
Burden is a problem.
Or Luther Burden.
Luther Burden's
he's a problem.
It's going to be one or the other. So DK, Burden was like very hype receiver coming into the year. Quarterback at Mizzou, Brady Cook, is just like hurt all year, and it's like he has a disappointing season. Now is Burden. We were like, top 15 pick. Now it's like second round. Like, what is going on with Luther Burden?
Yeah, I think there's there's a couple of questions with Burden. Number one, is he an outside guy? Because right now, basically, he plays mainly in the slot. He was like 80% in the slot last year. And is he a gadget guy, or in the gadget spectrum? You know what I mean? Where you're kind of having to design plays to get him the football in space. And I comped him to DJ Moore, which I think is a huge compliment. I think DJ Moore is a very good player, but I think that's sort of like the category of receiver that he's in, where he's not necessarily like a guy who's you're going to draw up a play where he just goes and gets open and gets a first down. It's like you're getting the ball into his hands so you can utilize his athleticism, you can utilize his explosiveness and pick up yards after the catch. He's been one of the best yards after the catch guys over the last couple of years. I don't think he's particularly strong at the catch point. He's really inconsistent when it comes to the ball is in the air and he has to beat the corner.
That's such an ick.
I know, and
I don't like when the ball's in the air and he
why
has to beat the cornerback.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I had this problem with like Xavier Worthy. Sometimes it just isn't an issue that in the NFL, because you're so fast or whatever, you're so explosive, you can just get open. But like Xavier Worthy was not very strong at the catch point, and it makes sense. He's like 170 pounds. But like, does that matter enough to drop him down boards? I don't know. I just think it's like he's enough in the gadgety type category that I think some people have him much, much lower than I do. I got him, I think 25 or something like that, 26. I still think he's a good player, but I think there are question marks over is like, what is his ceiling and again, this is the same thing we're talking about with Ted. It's like, is he a number one, or is he like a good number two who you can get the ball to in space?
Are the worries about him mainly on the field or off the field?
I mean, for me, I am only talking about what's happening on the field. I don't know about what's going on.
But I'm saying is the reason why he's falling, do you think that is primarily because of just like the more people scout him, the more they start to worry about him as a prospect on the field? Or is it there's a lot more conversations going on about like his character and his commitment to the game and his maturity, stuff like that?
I think there could be some of that. I'm not privy to it at the moment, but like that's something that we see at this time of year too, where guys fall and it comes out later. It's like, oh, teams had this guy as a red flag or whatever.
Yeah, and I think DJ Moore is such a good comp for multiple reasons. And one, I think you're right at Gadget being a spectrum, because Gadget, as spec, the highest end of Gadget is like a Tyreek Hill, where you're like, it's so good.
Totally.
We kind of got to get the ball in his hands all the time. And we'll do weird. And like the Bears did that with DJ Moore at the beginning of the season. But they're a real receiver too, like DJ Moore. And the other reason I think the DJ Moore comp works is that like just the parade of like the bad quarterback play. And again, I think, so Brady Cook, he played with his ankle injury all year. And I think that like it limited the offense. It was just a weird offense. And I think that he was frustrated. But the Gadget's the perfect word, because the derogatory of Gadget's a perfect word for the concept, because it's like kitchen gadgets, where sometimes you get one and it's exciting. And then you're like, I got to make shit up just to use this thing. Like Dwayne Eskridge with the Seahawks. I'm just going to have I'm going to make this whole dish just to use like this fucking.
It's like that avocado one that I still don't even know how to use.
I'm like, the avocado one was like, oh, cool. My mom got me this avocado peeler, and then you're going to use it. I'm like, why would I use this over a knife? This is insane.
I still don't even really understand how it works. And that thing scares me.
Dude, I'm actually great at cutting avocados. Knock on wood. I don't want to cut.
Me too, actually. Dude, I don't think it's that hard to cut an avocado.
I go around. I don't do it like everyone else. I quarter it, and then if it's perfectly ripe, then you can actually just peel the thing right off the back, off a quarter. Really,
you quarter it while the pit's still there.
No. So my process is start at the top, keep your hands around so don't slice it, bisect it around the equator like severance, split it, knife, hand behind my back so I never forget to cut it. Get the pit, get it out, and just took the pit over there. Then I slice in half, and then you can just peel the thing off the back, and if it's perfectly ripe, that thing just comes off.
Can I tell you, Heifetz? I do it the exact same way. Everything you just said is exactly how I do it.
Yes.
Cut it in half, stab the pit, take the pit out, cut it in quarters, peel off the skin.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the right way.
That's the move.
And I don't need a fucking Gadget to do it, just like I don't need like Dwayne Eskridge or someone to like.
Right. So DK, is Luther Burden a ripe avocado or not?
Yeah. Is he an avocado peeler?
I don't even know how to answer that.
Like if Tyreek Hill's a chef's knife, if DJ Moore is like a chef's knife, and then like the bad version's an avocado peeler, what kind of kitchen gadget is Luther Burden?
Yeah.
No idea.
Okay. This guy eats quesadillas for lunch every day. I'm asking what kind of kitchen gadget.
I know. So out of all the guys,
what's the best kitchen gadget?
The chef's knife. I think. Well, it's not a gadget.
That's not a gadget. That's a tool.
I like the pasta tongs, the thin ones that are like they're like big metal chopsticks. Essentially, those things are awesome.
Oh, like tongs, like with a head, like a. It's not, the end isn't like a chopstick, right?
What do you mean?
You
it's like it's basically giant tweezers. They're like kitchen tweezers, but they're giant. And they're great. You can use them for pasta. It's easy to like flip things in a pan. I feel like tongs, the problem with tongs is the actual like ends of the tongs are too thick. It's like hard to grab things and flip them.
Yeah.
With these kitchen tweezers or whatever they're called, the fine points at the end actually make it very easy to kind of manipulate food and grab stuff. It's great.
Damn, I never thought about you, right? But using tongs, I feel like I got oven mitts in my hands and I'm trying, like the chicken box or something. You just like, bumble around. Email us your favorite kitchen gadgets, ringerfantasyfootball@gmail.com. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Anyway.
I always thought Burden looked like awesome and I so explosive. He reminds me of Antonio Brown in a few ways. Like when the ball is in his hands, to me, he looks like one of the most explosive guys I've seen in a few years, and I would absolutely take a risk on him in the second round.
And I think that some people see that too, because I think I've seen some people have him as the number one receiver by far, and then other people
in the draft.
Yeah, like I think Lance Zierlein at NFL.com has him as his number one guy. But then there's other people that have him as a second rounder or worse. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think this is why we're talking about him. There's a really wide disparity in terms of what people see from him. And I think there was, he had a really tough year relative to what everyone was expecting this last season. He only had 61 catches, 676 yards, 6 touchdowns last year. The year before in 2023, 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns.
But like Heifetz said, I mean, there was a big difference in the quarterback play and the offense, and that whole situation was
of course, different. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of land somewhere in the middle on him. I don't think I share exactly your enthusiasm for him, Craig, but I do see the potential because of that explosiveness.
So it's also one of those things where if he does go in the late first compared to the early second, he could potentially land on a really good team who could use him specifically.
The final reason I think that the DJ Moore comp is perfect is the question we started this whole thing with. Like, where would you take Higgins? Like, where would you take DJ Moore in the draft if you knew he was DJ Moore? I still don't know. Like, I don't know where I would take DJ Moore in the NFL draft if I knew I was getting him. Like, I actually, you could convince me like a lot of different answers to that. So, all right, we will see.
Yeah. He'll be one of the more interesting guys on draft night, I think, for sure.
and needless to say, everyone, so we have more stuff coming up, but I just want to say, if you are new to this, well, no, we're going to go draft all through the draft, obviously, but then we keep doing fantasy stuff and other bullshit all summer, and then August, we just absolutely go ham. We get you ready for your fantasy football team. We also just cover the whole season. Like Sunday, like during the season, we do 4 episodes a week.
We never stop, never stopping.
Never stop. No days
Great
off.
movie.
I don't
Great movie.
So anyway,
It is. It's a good movie.
stick with us for that. I want to do a couple things. I have a few funny emails here, but I kind of want to start with Craig. Do you want to talk about the Seth Rogen thing?
Yeah, sure. So Seth Rogen, his new TV show just came out for Apple. It's called The Studio, where he plays a guy who just got hired to be the new studio head of Continental Studios, which is just basically like a Paramount in this world. And it's super funny, half-hour comedy. There's 10 episodes. I think they're coming out weekly. And
You described it as Veep for Hollywood, basically.
yes, I think what Veep did for politics, I think this studio kind of does for Hollywood, in that you feel like an insider and it's all the jargon and all that stuff of the world you're in, but it's also very accessible and you don't need to know every inside joke to still have a good time and hang out. And it's also just like flat out very funny. And Rogen and Goldberg, who are the best, their like stupid, silly slapstick sense of humor is like smacked right in the middle of this really glossy, pretty, sexy looking show about Hollywood, where every scene is shot as a oneer, which
Beautifully
is basically
shot.
like one take only for every scene. I think it's a really special show, and I think it's like my favorite comedy probably since Veep. And so the show I produced, The Town, the podcast with Matt Bellany about like the business of Hollywood. I guess Seth and Evan Goldberg are fans of The Town, and they wrote The Town podcast into the studio.
Like early
so
on in the
amazing.
first episode, too.
It's in the first episode. So in the world of the studio, Matt Remick, who is Seth Rogen's character, listens to The Town throughout the season. And
That's
so we
crazy.
recorded
Matt
we-
Bellany is just making a big old cameo.
Yes. And then Matt himself is in episode 9 and 10
Oh,
of the
no
show.
way. Awesome.
And so, yeah, we recorded lines over the summer for Seth and Evan, and it was nuts to see it in the show. It's very, very
So
bizarre. And
That's
we went,
crazy.
Yeah.
so we went to the premiere on Monday, and we got to go to the after party, and I was able to meet Seth. And he is, they don't meet your heroes. Seth was like as cool as you want him to be in every way.
Yeah.
Super nice, really goofy, funny, like very warm, knew the town. We were chatting all about it. He was just like so affable, approachable. And I can't speak more highly about Seth.
What happened when you walked up to him?
He went, "Producer Craig," which is very cool.
No way.
That's incredible.
That's awesome.
I just think Seth's the best. Obviously, like everything he's done writing and acting is great, but even like behind the scenes, he's a pretty prominent producer in Hollywood. He does like The Boys. He did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie that did really well. He does a lot of stuff. His company's called Point Grey. And everybody I talk to says that Seth and Evan are just like the best to work with.
Craig, I watched the first 2 episodes on your recommendation. Really liked it. Super funny. Like you said, it's shot really cool in the
It's shot like
way that the
Birdman?
cinematography,
Yeah.
they do a lot of like what Craig said is the oneers.
Scene by scene is shot
Yeah.
like Birdman. They cut between scenes a lot. Although the second episode is called The Oneer, and it's about a movie set trying to
Dude.
kind of pull off this big oneer shot for a movie that Continental Studios is making. But the episode itself is also a oneer.
The
That's
episode, by the
cool.
way, super well done. Very funny.
Yeah.
Gives me hives. The most stressful anxiety.
Episode 2 is the most secondhand embarrassment,
Like, just-
excruciating.
It's like it's 100. It's like it's so excruciating to watch that scene, but it's like
Also,
really well made.
Can I just say, Seth's wardrobe on the show and in real life is
Yeah.
so elite, and him and his stylist, whatever they're doing, it's fucking fantastic. He's wearing like
A lot of
old school
double-breasted
60s
suits.
double-breasted suits, yeah, like browns and oranges and greens. He looks awesome.
I gotta get that guy because I need a similar glow up from my Chance the Rapper shirt that Jason Concepcion roasted me for in front of the entire office when I was an intern. And
You got hit up Seth's stylist.
My,
Heifetz. Let's
Craig,
see if we
my
can get
dream,
him.
my dream is to one day be able to pull off those glasses that are just like slightly tinted. You know, the
Oh, like the
slightly
tor-
tinted. Not
He was wearing
sunglasses
those
per
when I
se.
met him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my dream.
I just look, Producer Craig. Ho, 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 ho.
That's so funny. I was like, man, he is
Oh
just
my
like
God.
exactly the same guy kind of you see on screen. It's like super nice, goofy. It was great.
Okay, that's sick. Let's do some emails here real quick.
Emails.
Emails.
I can't name everyone who sent us this on social media and email. I just thank
We
you
have
to
a
literally
brand.
everyone who sent this. I feel like really good about the show when people tag us and stuff, and I'm like, yep, this is 100% something we will
It's our
discuss.
brand.
Someone, so the thing was going around social media on Blue Sky. Shout out Blue Sky where we're all at. It's like if Twitter wasn't so fucking toxic, but it's the media guide for the 1936 Green Bay Packers. It's the roster, and it has like names and hometowns, positions. And then it just has it has
their real job,
occupation, and whether they're married or single is
Oh,
like
that's
on the
funny.
thing.
I didn't
And
know
the
that.
occupations on this,
Which is so funny. Like, why the fuck does it matter what the
Married or
relationship status is?
single?
literally, it's unbelievable. And the occupations, I think the people are like, oh, I can marry with my daughter. But the occupations on here, like literally their other jobs that they were actually paying their, like feeding their families with. Journalist, student, salesman. One of them is just baseball.
Baseball.
Don Hudson is just baseball. Don Hudson, aka the best receiver for Jerry Rice, who I have beef with Don Hudson. One of them's golf pro, but then it gets just out of control. Clark Hinkle, it just says investment. Joe Laws, it just says tire shop.
Yep.
A lot of
No, he's
Joe
farming.
Laws is farming. And then the best of all is Waylon Becker. It just says cheese.
Jeez.
My job is cheese.
What business
Occupation
are you
is
in?
cheese.
My job is cheese.
Dude,
What
it's
business
like
are you in,
Barbie
Wayland?
and Ken.
Cheese.
Barbie and Ken. It's like, so you're a lifeguard. No. It's just beach.
Beach. It's just beach.
So you sell cheese.
Just cheese.
Just cheese.
Arnold
which one of these is
Herber,
your favorite?
soft drinks.
I love Prospector. That's a job on here.
Prospector.
Prospector.
Paul Engelstein. Or I can't read it. Hold
I
on.
think I like
Engelstein.
I like that Arnold Herber's job is soft drinks.
Cheese,
There's an
Prospector,
oil worker.
soft drinks. The other one's just aircraft.
So he's a pilot, or does he
I
build planes, or what?
No,
No,
he would not. He's not a
No
pilot
clue.
for sure. He's just aircraft.
He's just aircraft.
The other one just says cafe prop. What does that mean? He's a proprietor. He runs a
He's a
cafe.
proprietor of a cafe.
Oh,
yeah.
What
The
is
prospector
a
guy was the one who
What
started
is a
the
prospector
49ers.
again?
I think
Like
he's
you're
panning
searching
for gold.
gold.
What
does that mean?
What do you mean what it means? It means during the offseason, he just goes and finds gold. In San
Is that a
Francisco.
job or is that a hobby? I don't understand.
I think it
It's a
depends if
career.
it depends if you make money doing it. If you don't find any gold, it's a hobby. If you find gold, it's a job.
I like Chester Johnston, golf pro.
I know,
Pretty
right?
impressive.
What
Dude,
a good
that's so-
life.
I know.
Golf pro in his real job, NFL player in his
We
hobby,
have
I
another
guess.
one at the bottom that just says baseball.
Baseball.
This is
Red Smith.
so good. Champ Seabold. God, his name is. If you have any more of these floating around the media,
Adolf
guys, please
Schwammel,
send us.
clothing.
Cheese.
Clothing.
Also, wait,
Cheese.
we
Wait,
forgot he's
Charles
a fucking Green Bay
Goldenberg
Packer.
was a wrestler.
Wait, he's literally a Packer. That's what the cheese thing is. He's a literal Packer.
Yeah.
Cheese.
This is the 36 Packers. He's actually a cheese Packer.
His job actually makes the most sense out of anyone's on this list.
That's the only one he's got going on.
He's the one who got him sponsored by
Yeah,
Acme,
cheese
Acme
Packer.
Packing Company.
Oh my God. Waylon Becker's like, I know a guy.
Also,
Holy
top
cow.
guy there, San Diego State. Paul Miller, journalist.
Dude, wait, one of these guys' name is Johnny Blood.
Ooh,
Johnny Blood
God, that's good.
from New Richmond, Wisconsin. Johnny Blood, salesman. Johnny Blood, door-to-door salesman knocking on your door.
I'm not
my
buying
God.
something from a guy named Johnny Blood, probably.
Also,
Johnny
the
Blood
head-
sounds, I don't know.
Johnny Blood McNally was his real name.
Johnny Blood.
Johnny
Also, so-
Blood.
So, Heifetz, you said the one at the bottom is baseball. That's the assistant coach, Red Smith. So the assistant coach is a professional baseball player?
I don't know. Maybe he's a baseball coach. I don't know.
Interesting. Or is he a
Google
baseball
Red Smith.
coach?
Watch it be like, he invented baseball.
And then Earl Lambeau, the head coach, was an insurance salesman in the offseason.
Lambo? Like
Yeah.
Curly
I mean, I'm
Lambo? Like the guy Lambeau Field is named after?
I would imagine they are in the same family. Earl.
Wait, I'm a Red Smith. Red Smith, the coach. He's from Wisconsin. He was like a
1936.
baseball coach at Georgetown and Seton Hall, and then he did base football in the offseason.
By the
He
way,
did.
Johnny Blood, there's a whole section on Wikipedia of his legendary antics. Which there's honestly too many to read, but it's basically he had a bunch of exploits which helped get him the nickname Johnny Blood.
Like
Nice.
he
So
killed
he's
people?
Climbing up and down buildings to get to hotel rooms and or to escape hotel rooms.
Johnny
apparently-
Blood needs like a movie. I
Dude,
feel
You
like,
know,
Hold on.
dude,
One
talk
of
to
these says,
Seth. Maybe he could get one
Yeah.
greenlit.
Seth, let me tell you about Johnny Blood, class clown of the
Johnny
1930s.
Blood McNally.
dude, he once pulled, I'm reading from the Wikipedia. Once, should I do the accent or no?
Yeah, do the transatlantic.
Once pulled his car directly to the path of the team train that he'd missed during a late night of wine, women, and song. Wasn't even fined or suspended. After all, he was the coach. Dude, he stopped the team train with his car.
It should not be a
That's
surprise to
crazy.
you. It should not be a surprise to you whatsoever that this man also served in World War II.
He once passed up an opportunity to purchase an NFL franchise for $1,200.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, he's like the original Dos Equis guy.
He is like
He
the
was
Dos
known for
Equis guy.
riding the blinds between trains on the way to training camp to avoid having to pay a fare, which earned him the nickname the Vagabond Halfback. Fucking love this guy.
Playing almost an entire game with a collapsed kidney.
Wow.
That just sounds dangerous.
Climbing down
yeah,
the
and
face
then
of a
he
hotel
listed
in
the day after
downtown
Pearl Harbor.
Chicago to avoid curfew and recite poetry to the swooning women below.
Ooh,
Dude,
a poet.
this is such a World War II life. You said DK enlisted the day after Pearl Harbor and then was the inaugural class of the NFL Hall of Fame. Literally the first Hall of Fame class to like Johnny Blood with Curly Lambeau and Sammy Baugh.
Oh, man.
All right.
Amazing. Just
Shout
built
out.
diff.
Thank you. Keep sending us media guides from the 30s. All right. Couple other things here. Parents. People love the parent shit. Starting with the parents who couldn't cook vegetables. Or our parents don't eat vegetables because their parents couldn't cook vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
Boys, we got a gusher. So many people are like,
crazy.
yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to read an email from Ryan that I thought
I don't
really...
love Gusher.
You don't
I
love
don't love
gusher?
that.
It's like
I don't
glory hole.
love-
You get a glory hole, you get a gusher.
how he uses
You know?
that either.
I just, yeah.
I'm going to continue
Just-
to lean into
it's
Use a
about
different
meal.
word. We got a banger. We got a great, I don't know, whatever. I'd rather have banger.
All right.
All right.
CBO or CGOs only. Okay. This one's from Ryan, which I thought summed up all the
Right
emails
guy.
pretty well. Listening to the
Ryan.
most recent podcast, I realized that my father, who's 66, eats like Al Michaels.
Yeah.
And I never really thought about it. And again, Al Michaels, those who don't know, doesn't he just go to Toscana in LA and just get a steak every day and potatoes for like 40
He's like
years?
never had a salad or a vegetable.
He's never,
Dude,
he's never
I
had a
eat-
vegetable.
I eat like 3 steaks in a row when we're on a work trip, and I'm like, I feel like I'm going to die.
Yeah.
You can like, I can like physically
My
feel
body
cholesterol.
can't break this
That's
down.
what it's that Al Michaels wants to leave these football games every time. He just is dying. So Ryan writes, I never really thought about how my dad eats like Al Michaels, but my mom always gives him a hard time. And anytime my dad comes to Los Angeles to visit me and we order sides of vegetables the restaurant has, and my dad never touches them. And I never understood this. But then after listening to your show, I gasped because I remembered when my grandmother died, his mother died, I had to go clean out her house. And it's important to stress here, my grandmother never cooked for the grandchildren, ever, because apparently she was horrible at it. So anyway, I got to the house to clean it out for her, and imagine my surprise to find, all caps, hundreds of Jolly Green Giant dolls, plates, memorabilia that was packed in boxes on boxes on boxes, obviously clearly from the 1960s and 70s. And the only way you can get these items, it turns out, is to send in the old school proof of purchase labels from probably the shittiest cans of vegetables imaginable. So now I realize my dad doesn't eat vegetables because my grandmother was a weirdo who served horrible canned vegetables to her kids because she wanted to get stuffed animals in the shape of a burly green broccoli man. And anyway, he says, thank you for saving me like $2,000 of therapy to get to that.
I really do sympathize with all the people who grew up in like the 60s and 70s out there who were eating like canned lima beans every night for dinner.
They're hiding under their desks to help
Just
from
Navy beans.
They're hiding under desks to stop the nuclear war and going home and just eating, lima beans and
wartime
Just-
rations.
Jolly Giant.
Here's a plate of Navy beans for dinner.
Eat up, boy.
My grandma would make casseroles a lot, like green bean casseroles, which I imagine
Green
were
bean
made from
casserole
canned
needs to
green
die.
beans, just like soggy green beans.
Casserole's like Gertrude. No one wants to use that word anymore. But it's incredible how many people are like, yeah, my parents would just boil or steam vegetables and put them on a plate.
Yep.
And then you couldn't leave dinner until you ate them.
Nasty.
So shout out to everyone. If you have more stories of your parents not eating vegetables or not parents can't cooking, emails from your fantasyfootball@gmail.com. The other one, I love this one so much. This is another one on parents lying to children.
Sure. Love
This
this.
one's from Ellie.
Ellie.
Ellie writes, as a kid, I was a big Barney fan. So much
Who
so
wasn't?
that I demanded Barney arrive to my 4th birthday party.
Oh boy.
My family, obviously, could not get Barney to come. And because of trademarks or whatever, they couldn't rent a Barney costume. So instead, they found an off-brand Barney costume. And they told me Barney was filming his show in Paris with his crew, so that instead Barney's cousin was going to come. I have to show you guys.
That's not Santa.
I have to show you guys
This
this
is Barney's
photo.
cousin Mitch.
Barney's cousin Mitch. Ellie has given me permission to put this photo on the show, and I am going to pull up this photo right now. You guys have to see what Barney's fucking cousin looks like. This is the Barney knockoff.
Oh, that's creepy.
Look at the
that
dead
thing.
black eyes.
I'm gonna see this thing in my nightmares tonight.
Yeah, the eyes are staring at me. I can't.
Also,
look
look at the two kids. They look concerned.
Kids are so upset, and Barney looks like he could never make them happy, dude.
Barney, he's like got like the posture of like George Michael when he does like the walk, you know?
Yes.
What is it? What is the walk from?
Sad.
It's the Charlie Brown walk.
Brown.
Yeah.
The Charlie Brown walk. He's like the saddest looking.
I mean,
child
Barney's supposed
molester
to be a
I've ever
fucking
seen.
dinosaur. I don't know what the hell this thing is.
Looks like an alien.
It looks like a character from Mario.
Barney's cousin.
Look, yeah, it's like Yoshi's
Oh, that's
purple
good.
cousin.
It looks like
Anyway,
Birdo,
I
kind
thought-
of. You guys know Birdo from Mario?
No.
Birdo?
You don't know Birdo?
Oh, it does look like Birdo. Wow, yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like Birdo's really.
How do you
sad
know
older
the
brother.
name that character's name is Birdo?
Birdo's like
That's what I
sad,
want
like
to know.
Birdo's sad older brother.
I
just
played a
come
lot
out
of
the
Mario
room.
growing up.
I
Love
don't know.
Mario.
It's just funny. I don't know. Never
Birdo's
knew
newer.
that was Birdo.
All right, I couldn't get over that. I thought that was incredible.
That's so funny.
That was. If anyone else's parents brought like a off-brand mascot to their birthday party or anything that sounds even kind of like that, please attach photos.
Have you ever seen those videos of parents having like their friends dress up as the Grinch and like run in on Christmas Day and like steal
What?
presents and then
No.
they film the children?
Kids are
I
just
think
like
it's like one of those
screaming.
things that Jimmy Kimmel always puts on his show
Is that
because he
shit
loves that
Sal
shit.
came up with? Sal's like, let's ruin Christmas for kids. 'Cause
Yes.
Was it Sal who was like, let's ruin Halloween and tell the kids we ate their candy?
Yes, yeah. He loves those things. Any like child pranks he's into. But the Grinch stuff is honestly really funny. The kids are fucking terrified.
That's so funny. We should have Sal come on and tell what kid lies.
Just
he's told.
traumatized.
That's unbelievable. That's
you-
kind of wild. Ruining Christmas and ruining November 1st morning are very different to me. Telling your kids on November 1 that like you've eaten their candy is funny. Ruining Christmas Day is that could lead to that's kind of tough.
I gotta say, I watched the Jim Carrey Grinch movie recently. It's
Oh, yeah.
creepy. It's just a creepy thing, and then it makes me look at all the Dr. Seuss books very differently because I read a bunch of Dr. Seuss books to Calvin, and I'm just like, this world that they live in. He was really
It's
on
a bit of a
something.
drug trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
You
a little
guys
dark.
see breaking news? The Sundance Film Festival announced that they are moving to Boulder, Colorado.
Why are they doing that?
Because cities bid on this. Their contract was up with Park City, Utah, and cities just bid on it. And Boulder was probably the highest bidder.
No, that's cool.
And I think they wanted to go. Park City's kind of hard to get to be honest.
Boulder's
You
a
gotta
lot
find
bigger,
Salt Lake
right?
City.
Isn't it?
Boulder's bigger, and you have the college, and so you can like. There's a lot of just like infrastructure already there. They have a film school. I think that was also a reason why. Cincinnati was on the list, which I was going to be upset if Cincinnati won. That doesn't sound super great.
What are you saying about Cincinnati, Craig?
Nothing. I just don't think Cincinnati. I think Boulder kind of carries on some of the traditions that Park City does from a nature standpoint. Cincinnati, I'm not sure if it does.
Not sure if it does.
Boulder's cool.
You know, flying to Denver's giant ass weird ass airport.
I know you still have to. It's still a little bit of a drive, right?
It's like 40. It's at under an hour, right?
Yeah, you have to fly into Salt Lake City and then drive an hour to Park City. But
I worry they're going to move the combine. For similar reasons.
I know, and after being there now, I don't want it to move. I really
get it now
understand
where it's
why.
like,
yes,
Indianapolis is such an incredible convention city because you can basically walk 17 minutes indoors without ever. You can walk from like 7 blocks from that stadium.
and just
get
like
it
the
entirely
limited number of like bars that can hold everybody really helps. If it's in LA or a major
They can't
city,
do
no
it
one's
in
gonna
LA.
see
You would
each
never
other.
see anyone.
It's going to be
no.
way
Yeah.
too splintered. You won't get any access.
No.
Mhm.
So, but it's another thing you can sell. All right.
But
well,
is that contract up? Or cities bidding on the combine?
it's a chip. Basically, like the NFL just loves to, squeeze everything they can out of everything, and they just like it's another trip to trade. So it's like on one hand, the same way I think they gotten out of this, but they used to just say anybody who builds a stadium gets a Super Bowl. That was just like a carrot. Like anyone who builds a stadium, we don't care where it is, Minnesota, Buffalo, you build a stadium, we're going to give you a Super Bowl. And they're basic, and then there's certain teams that want other stuff. So Kansas City wanted the draft, and that was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The NFL was like, you need to rebuild your entire airport. If Kansas City builds a new airport, you will get a draft because they it was the worst airport.
Kansas City Airport was just not built to have.
Yeah, like Green Bay is getting the draft, and so it's like they're like, there are certain cities that like we don't actually want to give Green Bay or Kansas City the Super Bowl, but like maybe we'll give you the Combine, and it's just another thing that you can kind of hand out and trade. But it's the rare thing where everyone's against it. Like literally, players, agents, coaches, teams, journalists, every stakeholder involved is actually very rarely aligned, but everyone's like, we kind of like our thing and we don't want to redo all of this. So I don't know if anyone cares about that. So we could have a show. Thank you, DK. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Kai. Thank you to everyone emailed in your childhood trauma about lying, parents lying to you, you lying to your parents.
Thank you to Barney's cousin, Mitch.
Thank you to Barney's cousin, Mitch. Thank you to Seth Rogen for having the town in the studio. Check out the town. I'm mostly just happy that Seth Rogen called you producer Craig and did the laugh. That makes me happy.
I got to say, and I don't say this just because I like Craig, The Town is a really good podcast.
It is good. Shout out to Matt
that
Bellany.
Podcast.
Yeah, listen to The Town. I mean, still listen to us, but listen to The Town.
Don't replace us, but just do both.
Exactly.
Right.
Thank you, Lord.
And watch the studio. Lord.
Thank you, Bloodhound Gang. You guys remember
Johnny Blood?
Johnny Blood.
I don't know Bloodhound Gang.
Baby ain't nothing but mammals. Remember that song?
Oh,
no.
Okay.
What?
Yeah, no, you know it.
Wow.
You just did a bad job. No, Craig, you did a bad job.
I just did a bad job. Thanks.
He
Says
botched
the
it.
tone deaf guy.
Takes one to know one.
Fair. You do it.
Botched it.
What is it? Bloodhound Gang?
Do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. Yeah, horn it out.
That sounds familiar. What's that song called?
The Bad Touch.
Is that what it's called?
Their album covers are certainly a choice.
Oh wait, that's the other thing about the studio. I'm not spoiling it, I think, right? When it's like the premise of the movie is that Seth Rogen loves movies and is so excited to run a studio and get to fix Hollywood, and his job is actually to ruin movies.
Well, his job is to make commercially successful movies. Not
and it's balancing art and business. It's that's the ultimate question in Hollywood is, can you actually make good movies that also make money? And that line, Seth Rogen said in an interview on NPR, he was like, the line of my whole life I've loved movies and now I think it's my job to ruin them, which is a great log line. But he said that when he and Evan were in their early 20s meeting people for Superbad, an executive told that to them and they never forgot it. And now it made its way all the way to the show.
Wait, what was the line again?
My whole life I've loved movies and now I fear it's my job to ruin them.
Great.
Which is great.
That's
it's
crazy.
an amazing line.
All right, goodbye.